good stuff. This is a track called Alone With You by Phaserland. It should also be noted that I am always updating the Quite Frankly mixtape. That is the official Quite Frankly playlist of all the music that we have used on the show and have not been able to use on the show because of copyright. But guess what? All those restrictions are going away now that we're doing something really, really cool starting tonight. Where's that mixtape, Frank? Oh, it's on the on-demand section on quitefrankly.tv. It is our Spotify mixtape. There's over 300 songs there now, and I really love the mix there. I was listening to it a lot on the way to and from Boston on Saturday for the Spartan race, which was really great. It was a shorter race than it was at Citi Field, but it was a little bit tougher. And it was really nice being in that old ballpark for the first time since 1999, and got to go. You know, part of the course you're running over the through the monster seats, along the Green Monster, along the way on that final track there. I really had a good time. Me and Anthony out there, just doing our thing. We were with a very, very large group though, so we were held back by I think at least an hour. Anthony sent me the times because all of your times are tracked by the wristband that you wear at these Spartan races. Let me see where the hell it is. Anthony sent me the times. They were pathetic. Total time 1 hour 59 minutes and 38 seconds. Category rank 5,182 out of 5,302. If it was just my brother and I, we would have gone through that thing in no later than an hour, but you're just waiting for so many people. But it was still a lot of fun. Had a great workout and a really wonderful drive to and fro. So Boston, I got to tell you, Boston, you could just tell how old the city is. Just the plot, the way that it's very old, but it's very well kept, and that's the way it was in 1999 when I was there too. Like after the game that we went to go see between the Yankees and the Red Sox, we stayed at the Hotel Buckminster, and it was still there, staring me right in the face. I said, I wonder if the interior of that hotel still looks like a key lime pie. That's how that was the color back then. It's just this bright. It was crazy, but I remember back then. We went to bed that night, and the streets were just trashed. You know, just people walking around, a lot of garbage from the ballpark and all that stuff. But waking up the next morning, you can eat off the sidewalks. It was so pristine. So the same thing could be said about that. My experience this time, it was very, very clean, at least where I was around Fenway Park, and I really liked it. I really enjoyed the experience. So. What else we got? Oh, tonight, just to let you know, it is around intermission time is when we are bouncing off of all platforms except pilled.net. You can go to, and all the links have been provided in the tweets and the truths and the gabs and the Telegram. There is the direct Foxhole link. There is also a welcome link if you've never been on Pilled before, where you get to sign up and you get to you get like pretty much a little bit of a tutorial there. And then there's a direct link to Foxhole. And then as always, if you just want to, okay, listen, I just want to watch the show and I'll figure this out later and I'll register later, quitefrankly.tv. That's it. Press play. No paywall, no strings attached, no shenanigans whatsoever, no censorship. So I'm really looking forward to this night and all the nights with the 7 o'clock show going forward, and I hope you have a good time too. So big experiment for all of us, but I'm having fun. We did a lot of work over the weekend. The coffee is really doing well, and I just got the first person to get in touch with me. Jay Britz, you guys have heard that name before in the super chats. Here is Jay Britz sent me that. It's for Jeff. And there's the Quite Frankly Elevation blend and the sample package of all those chocolate-covered espresso beans. Those are great. I love the milk chocolate, the dark chocolate, and the cookies and cream one there, too. I threw the white chocolate ones away. I'm just not a white chocolate guy. Just not working for me, but they were so good, and that is just the bonus. Well, the reason why I put this up here is because Paige from the Coffee Revolution, confirmed that Jay Britz was the first customer. But you know what? He was the first of 36 pounds that were moved over the weekend. And I'm so happy that what I hope is coming next is that I got a lot of feedback coming through, because just from Jay and another one of our friends out there, they said that not only did they love the coffee, they just loved how aromatic it was. It was very, very potpourri-like in how it filled up the house and made everything smell like the wonderful light roast that it is. I don't know. So I hope you have a good experience. Let me know. I want all the feedback we can get. And sometime over the next couple of days, I'll be able to reveal another amazing relaunch for you on our merch section. This is going to be so exciting. So that's next. In February or March is when we're going to have the official, quite frankly, mugs available through Coffee Revolution. I'll talk about that. And why is it taking so long? Because these are going to be handcrafted with clay. It's going to be great. They're going to cost a little bit more, but this is going to be quality that you're just could. It's going to be great. So I said, I don't care. I don't care how long it takes. Let's do something awesome like that. So that's what we're getting into, and even more coming your way. Another thing I wanted to put up front tonight is just a couple of more thoughts about our friend Albert. We learned about his death last week, and I just wanted to take another opportunity to address our buddy Al. I really hated that I had to make that announcement at the end of such a positive show on Thursday night, but I was off Friday night, and I knew I wasn't going to be on air, and I did not want to wait all weekend because I didn't want to delay any of the help that we could have offered his family, or the prayers, especially his wife Lisa, who expresses her deep gratitude toward the audience, because this, Albert had a lot of friends out there. And that's the other thing. It's not even just friends. It's the loss that I think that really hits a lot of people evenly, even if you only just listen to the show for any number of years, and that's just it. It's just, these are characters that we all come to know. You come to know them through whatever it is they choose to reveal about themselves, obviously. And it just hurts me very deeply to know that Al had probably a lot more pain that he didn't readily reveal. And I'm really going to miss him. And I started a thread at the request of a lot of you out there. It's called Albert Thoughts and Memories from the Show. You can put it, it's on the Quite Frankly forum. I pinned it to the top. You can put quotes, you can put clips, you can put reactions. It's on the forum. The GoFundMe link is still there. The family has only a little bit more to go to reach their goal. It's a modest goal, and I'll give this a few days before we can read through some of the best ofs, maybe on a Friday or something like that. I'll give it a few days to allow these entries to stack up, but I really hope that many of you go in there and say a little something. So that's what we do, and I'm sorry that's the way it had to. We ended the week, but I was like, well, I didn't want it to wait days. So thank you all for joining us tonight. Say a prayer for Al, and let's move on to the show, which he loves and doesn't love any less even now. So let's go and do this. We have a guest tonight that I have been looking forward to having on for a long time, and we finally worked it out. Finally worked out a topic and a time, and here she is. It is Lauren, not my Lauren, but a Lauren, a great Lauren. She goes by SomeBitchIKnow, which I love. I just love it. It's a testament to her personality, just to be so fun like that. She's a real hoot. Well, Lauren, SomeBitchIKnow is a purveyor of data. That's what I would say. She has created an intricate news archive system that helps make better connections between stories that may otherwise seem unconnected as they whiz past us during the average 12-hour news cycle. Well, she hosts a show called Big Dig Energy, BDE, BigDigEnergy.info. That's the name of the show, and it's a regular dive into the big news of the day, or the news myths of the day in the current age. So she's going to be on with us tonight to talk about a litany of things, including her data archiving creation. And that's it. And we're going to be carrying that interview into the second half, so we can do this in our new humble abode, the old abode, but just putting a little bit more emphasis on it. I'm really excited about that. Thank you to our sponsors, BlueMonsterPrep.com. It is holiday shopping season. It's in full swing. Get out there and put everybody on the affiliates page as a part of your online shopping. All American help, all American products, and Blue Monster should be at the top of your list, because you are essentially giving anybody in your life a chance to start their prepping. And there's plenty of prepping that needs to be done in the coming years, coming months, coming days. So go ahead and check them out. Let's see here. Yep, that's all I have for you. All right, into the grab bag we go. We have a couple of minutes to do it. And why not? Here's the first one up. It's from the New York Post. Wow. Fed up migrants. The migrants are fed up, ladies and gentlemen. At least a couple of them are. Not nearly enough. Fed up migrants who trekked thousands of miles to the U.S. already heading home. The American dream doesn't exist. You see, this is what I'm talking about. As long as the block grants go away, as long as all that money that should not be floating around out there goes away, if there's nothing that the states can do for people that don't belong there, especially because there's nothing to give, they will self-deport. Okay? This is the difference between social media and reality. The social media reality, which is a fantasy, is, hey, come to America, the borders are open, and this is the last chance to get in. The streets are paved with McDonald's dollar menu double cheeseburgers. And then you realize, I'm stacked like rats inside of a repurposed hotel, and I'm eating Elio's pizza for 5 months, and the American dream hasn't shown up for me yet. So here, let's just read a little bit more. Here's the headline. The top line. Some Venezuelan migrants who trek thousands of miles to the U.S. in search of a better life are so disheartened they said they're already heading back home. Michael Castellon, 39, told the Chicago Tribune that he had enough after he and his wife and teenage stepdaughter spent 5 months sleeping either in police precinct or in a crowded city shelter in a now brutally cold, windy city of Chicago. He also has been unable to secure a job permit or enroll his daughter in a local school. This is... What am I supposed to feel? I feel bad? Anybody promised me this and said, all you got to do is walk 5,000 miles in that direction, I'd say, I'll just stay right here. I'll just stay right here. The American dream doesn't exist anymore, said Castellon. I wonder what... I see, if I were doing a story like this, if I were the reporter doing this, instead of just getting the quotes and talking... This is another weepy-eyed way of covering the migrant crisis that was flung upon us as an act of war. I would ask them, what do you think, Mr. Castellon? What do you think the American dream is or was? I would love to hear that question answered. I would love to hear that. What did you think was going to happen? Did you think that you were going to get a few acres and a mule? What did you think was going on? There's nothing here for us. We just want to be home. If we're going to be sleeping in the streets, we'd rather be sleeping in the streets over there. Perfectly sound logic. Perfectly sound logic. If this country had a shred of self-respect, these people would have been jettisoned back across the border immediately. But then again, they would have never came because the dinner bell wouldn't have rung. So they wouldn't have gotten any silly court dates, certainly no first-class flights into these big cities where they are put up in a hotel and fed and all that other stuff while nothing really happens because there's nothing to do. This is just another example of the difference between social media and reality. This is the American dream now. This is the American dream now. Okay? The steady methadone drip of welfare where every need is provided for and every outcome is forced. It's a war upon... it's a war against the American dream, actually. And they're the weapons. They're the weapons. But don't let this story make it seem like they're all just leaving. This is a couple of people out of the hundreds of thousands who have arrived across many cities over the last however many months, and And that's that. It's just really crazy. It's really, really insane. The American dream. Anywho, okay, let's go on to something else. Here is South Korea. It's already starting. Industrial robot kills a man in South Korean distribution center. A man in South Korea was crushed to death by a machine which apparently failed to differentiate him from the boxes of produce it was handling. That's right, the machine was big enough, too. The man, a robotics company worker in his 40s, was in the process of inspecting the robot's sensor operations at a distribution center for agricultural produce in the Gyeongsang province. The robot, having been tasked with lifting boxes full of bell peppers onto a pallet, appeared to have identified the man as a box, according to a local... This is not funny. Shut up, Frank. I think it's just because it's a box of bell peppers. How big was the box? Bell peppers it's a hollow vegetable. Or are they fruits because they have seeds? The robot, having been tasked with lifting boxes of bell peppers, appears to have identified the man. The robotic arm pushed the man's upper body down against the conveyor belt, crushing his face and chest. Oh, okay. Okay. He was transferred to the hospital but died later. The Donggyesong Export Agricultural Complex, the company owns the vegetable plant, called for safer, improved systems surrounding the testing and implementation of robotics. Well, that's an easy thing to say when somebody gets crushed. I call for safer of these things. Man, keep your eyes peeled in those factories now. Here's another one. This is what we'll leave off with. Samuel Haskell, son of a top Hollywood agent, seen dumping a body in newly released surveillance footage. The son of a top Hollywood agent who was arrested after a woman's torso was found in a dumpster near his L.A. home was caught on camera disposing of what appears to be part of her body in a California strip mall parking lot. Surveillance footage obtained by TMZ shows Samuel Haskell IV parking his white Tesla next to a dumpster in Encino on Tuesday afternoon before opening the back and taking out what appears to be a large garbage bag. Haskell, 35 years old, can be seen struggling to hoist the unwieldy bag onto his shoulder before tossing it into the dumpster. Two separate clips obtained by the outlet show the unsettling scene from a close-up and farther away. The shocking footage was recorded at the same location where a homeless person scavenging for recyclables stumbled across the torso early Wednesday. Investigators said there was no obvious identifying signs on the torso like tattoos, but they believe it likely belongs to Haskell's missing wife, Mel, or May. M-E-I. I wonder where he learned that from. Jeez. All right, well, a little bit of Hollyweird for you, a little bit of South Korea, and a little bit of Chicago. There you go. That's all I have in the opening here. Let's get ready and set the table for some bitch I know. She's swinging by. Don't go anywhere. BRB.
Who was the better man?
Okay.
Dr. Martin Luther King?
Mm-hmm.
Stalin.
Finally, these are the big questions.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's
Okay, so, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. That was the fake show. This is the real show. Actually, this is the fake show, too. The real show is the last 5 minutes. That's the real show. So I've only really done a couple of shows aggregate the entire my entire career since 2006. Though many of you weren't here in 2006. Those were my practice years. But I was pretending. I saw you guys in my mind's eye every night. And I still see many more of you. They haven't arrived yet. We still have millions coming. We have still millions set to arrive. Well, welcome to the show. I want to bring you a little something. You know, we're going to talk a little bit about information tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about society. A little bit about the mind. How sharp can the mind get? How many connections can the mind make? Well, there's one thing I'd like to start off with. It's a little bit of an inverse of that. It's an article from DZN, what is it called? DNYUZ. What does that mean? I guess I'll look into that sometime. DNYUZ, they started a little bit of a thread here that I think is pretty interesting. Now, some of you may attribute a number of obvious factors to what they're about to report on, but this goes back a lot farther than you think. Here's the headline. Can't think, can't remember. More Americans say they are in a cognitive fog. Got a couple of paragraphs to this before we bring Lauren on. There are more Americans who say that they have serious cognitive issues with remembering, concentrating, or making decisions than any time in the last 15 years. Data from the Census Bureau shows. The increase started with the pandemic. The number of working-age adults reported serious difficulty thinking has climbed an estimated 1 million people. About as many adults 18 to 64 now report severe cognitive issues as report trouble walking or taking the stairs for the first time since the Bureau started asking the questions each month in the 2000s. Okay, so 15 years, we're seeing a big uptick, though, in the last 3 years since 2020. They really hover this around COVID. Now, they're going to cover long COVID, which I know that I know just from people in my life, it took them a long time to really get back on their feet from whatever was going around. But still, younger adults are driving the trend, they say. The sharp increase captured the effects of long COVID for a small but significant portion of younger adults, researchers say, most likely in addition to other effects of the pandemic, including psychological distress. You remember when the Zells called in earlier on in 2020, and we were talking about this maybe around May, how this was after the initial 15 days of, initial lockdown, I should say. Yeah, initial 15 days. And then how it was dragging on, and we started realizing the impacts of this economically, psychologically, educationally, all of that. And we came to the conclusion, remember Frank calling in, and we're like, this is shock. This is shock trauma. Not necessarily catatonic, but there's something going on there. There's a time warp we're in. Everything is dilated. It was just very weird. And it's kept up since then. So I think that is a major driver, absolutely. But, there's probably something else there going on that they're not going to cover in this. The sharp increase captures the effect of long COVID for a small but significant portion of younger adults, researchers say, most likely in addition to other effects of the pandemic, including psychological distress. But they also say it's not yet possible to fully dissect all the reasons behind the increase. Richard Dietz, an economist at the Federal Reserve Bank in New York, analyzed the data and attributed much of the increase to long COVID. These numbers don't do this. They just don't start suddenly increasing sharply like this. Yes, I know, I agree. In its monthly current population survey, the census asked a sample of Americans whether they have serious problems with their memory and concentration. It defines them as disabled if they answer yes to that question, or one of 5 others about limitations on their daily activities. The questions are unrelated to disability applications, so respondents don't have a financial incentive to answer one way or another. At the start of 2020, the survey estimated that there were fewer than 15 million Americans ages 18 to 64 with any kind of disability. That rose to about 16.5 million by September of 2023. Here, I got a little bit. Here's one for you. Emmanuel Arguera, or Aguirre, a 30-year-old software engineer in the Bay Area, had COVID at the end of 2020. Within a month, he said his life has been transformed. I felt like I was permanently hungover, drunk, high, and in brain freeze all at once. He stopped dating, playing video games, and reading novels, though he managed to keep his job working remotely. And they go on and on and on there. Heather Carr, 31, sold agricultural machine parts in Syracuse, New York, but 2 coronavirus infections left her largely bedbound and barely able to string together a basic train of thought. She had trouble staying awake while driving and eventually had to give up her job. Now, I mean, you jump into that, and there's a lot of things I'm sure you can think of that could contribute to something like this. But there is, I would have to say, a very strong factor here, the fog of war. More specifically, the fog of fifth-generation warfare. And we talk about this a lot. Psychological warfare morphed into mind war. What's going on there? The ability to conquer people without them even having the inkling of fighting. To win the war before it actually even breaks out, and to win it inside of the mind. And there's just so many layers to so many stories that it becomes so convoluted, you're almost encouraged to say, I give up. I give up tracking the story. I give up tracking that story. Because really, what is there a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow if I figure it out anyway? Is anybody going to get arrested? What's going to happen? You know, I understand that you're working on yourself. You're giving yourself an ability to be able to communicate with people around you, and maybe that's the best thing that we can do, is just build a larger community and be able to open up those lines of communication and new bold conversations that totally differ and go off the beaten path. You know, disinformation, to dabble with dis and misinformation and malinformation. That's probably the best thing you can do these days, but that's what I was contemplating. It's the fog of fifth-generation warfare, no doubt. Now, our next guest, who should be on with us any second now, our next guest, let me just make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, hold on. She said she's getting sorted. So, she's getting sorted right now. Don't worry. She's on her way. Our next guest, Lauren, Some Bitch I Know. That is the tagline, her tag on Twitter. You can go check that out inside of the description of the episode, along with her website. She is a purveyor of data, like I said. And I also like the way that she runs her show. It's not only about doing deep dives, and also to do them on the fly. That's the great thing. Just to kind of work with the audience, interact, and uncover gems, hidden gems along the way. And I think that's the best thing here that she does, is really sift through data. And she has the mind for it and the personality to hopefully not let it completely drag her down into the weeds like everybody else and bog them. But she has created an intricate news archival system that helps make better connections between stories that otherwise seem unconnected, as I said in the beginning, as they whiz past us during the average, what seems to be 6 to 12 hour news cycles. Big Dig Energy is the name of the show. It's a dive into big news items of the current age and into the life of its host, Lauren. And she has a great time with her audience. Tonight we'll discuss her work, the past and the future society of our society, and whatever else distracts us along the way. So I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to take a little bit of a break to give her another couple of seconds. And when we come back, she will be here. So don't go anywhere, ladies and gents. BRB.
Hey, guys, I'm in New York City just hanging out.
Cute little dog you've got there. But hold on. In a previous life, he could have been George Washington. Nice cat. Perhaps Annie Oakley. And look at him. Why, it's Napoleon. Reincarnated. reincarnation. What human being was your pet in a previous lifetime? Master reincarnationist E. David Scott will tell you when you call this number. Just answer simple questions with your touch-tone phone. $1.95 per minute for entertainment only. Under 18, get permission. Call now. Learn who your pet was as a human in a previous lifetime.
QFTV has got music, movies, video roundup, throwback, vintage, frankly, episodes, and so much more. So hang out, chill, nightly, at quite frankly.tv.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So we are back. And we have. Her audio is connecting. She's connected now. We are back.
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
I can't hear you at all.
No, me?
I can't hear you. Hang on.
Hold on. She's got it. She knows what she's doing.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. Yes. Can you hear me?
I can't hear you at all. Fuck. I can't hear you.
It's all right.
Audio settings? What the fuck?
Yeah, audio settings. That's where you go.
Oh.
She's here.
Okay.
You heard me.
I can hear you now.
Oh, wow.
Okay, I did it.
We did it. Welcome, Lauren.
Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. It
all right.
would be a normal day, I guess, if I didn't have a million technical difficulties. So
no, it's fine. It's great to have you on. It's been a long time coming.
Thank you. I think so too. I'm stoked about it. Sorry, I got very.
If you're like me, then any kind of technological blip. If you're like me, any kind of technological blip is enough to almost ruin the world will crash down in a second.
Yeah, it's kind of funny though, considering, despite having like a show and a website and I feel like I get worse with tech as it goes on. But I was trying to download Zoom, and it kept blocking it, saying it was it was not a acceptable download. And so it's like, oh my gosh, because it needed to update, because I guess the last time I downloaded it was when I was still working in 2020 for like a contractor, and it was like,
well, it takes me way too long to try any new technology, and then once I get used to that, troubleshooting has always been a pet peeve of mine. But at least we do figure it out and we stick with it. And let me ask you this:
yes.
what did you think about this article with the cognitive fog? Because I think it really ties into the kind of work that you do in particular. But this post 2020. It's easy to see why there is a spike in people's brains being fried. But do you think that this trend actually started before 2020? They try to focus in on 20 to 2023, but there's something going on mentally with this world prior to that too.
I certainly think that 2020 was it. Are you turning on my audio?
Wait, what's the matter?
No, my microphone keeps turning itself down. Why? What? Is it okay?
Yeah, you sound now. You sound fine now.
I'm literally watching it keeps going. I don't know what, my computer is like haunted right now, I guess. Anyway, so
my
I'm just not going to touch anything anymore. Hopefully it works.
Right.
But so, 2020 was a huge onslaught of information. Everyone was kept in the dark for a long time. And then, kind of all at once, some might say by design, if you're a conspiratorial type, that it all happened at once to be chaotic, so you just had to kind of accept whatever you were told, which for me, fortunately, was kind of when I was going through a bit of a sentience renaissance almost, becoming self-aware, at the ripe old age of 30. So but I think there probably is a correlation with 2020, but I don't think that long COVID is the culprit here. Yeah. I think it's just the media landscape had already shifted dramatically over the last I don't know, I wasn't really aware for most of it, but it seemed to have started to shift very dramatically like 2015-ish, once Trump was considered like a major contender, and it had already, it was already the way that it was before. But by the time we were in 2020, we were in full just fever pitch throwing anything to see what would stick hysteria. And once you accelerate to that point, you can't let off the gas because everyone has information fatigue.
Yeah.
And you have to keep upping the ante. And I think the just stress of the initial uncertainty that we all had, when faced with the prospect of, is this actually something? Is this not? We were getting all of those, PSYOP videos out of China of people like laying dead in the street, which, looking at in hindsight, should have known better, but we didn't, or some of us didn't. I didn't, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
So, and I think a lot of people are just kind of checked out. They're just tired. And I think that it's really easy to blame something like long COVID because you just want, if you do get sick, it hits you really hard because your stress is up. That affects how sick you get. And you just like let all of the energy you did have just deplete. So I'm not saying that there isn't such thing as, long-term effects from whether it be gene therapy or the virus itself. Who knows and who can say, because a lot of the things that are indicative of long COVID tend to be, it's a very wide net they're casting. Do you have brain fog sometimes? Do you sometimes, get sweaty palms? It could be long COVID. Might not be though.
I know.
So,
and you had mentioned something there that I think is really important because I do believe that there is the primary fatigue is with overstimulation. That
for sure.
The information fatigue, the disaster fatigue. I mean that really predates COVID. I mean they run the disaster cycle between gun violence and the
climate change,
environment. Huge.
I think one of the most significant pieces of work that James O'Keefe did before Project Veritas kind of imploded was when they had that guy from CNN talking about how they were planning on replacing people's COVID information fatigue with climate change rhetoric because they knew that they could really ramp that up and get that viewer base all fired up again. I thought that was so significant, and I feel like people kind of let it go pretty quickly. Well, but it's also very easy to let things go because there's always new stuff coming in. So
exactly. Yeah. But the other thing there too is within that 3-year period, we got a lot of intelligence agencies, not even just ours, but the Canadians, Australians, that were pretty much saying that we're going to use COVID to test out compliance, and also they rolled out so many mind control programs right there to test compliance and everything else. Sure. And so I mean it's crazy, but you brought up something there. You brought up your sentience renaissance, and like many people over the last 10 to 15 years, I know you had that clarity that cut through the proverbial fog at some point. So tell me something, because I don't know this side of you. What kind of life did you have prior, before you found yourself on the path that you're traveling now? What sparked it? I want to know the exact moment if you know it.
I do know it. I tried to start writing. I try to be as concise as possible. I tend to fail at that pretty spectacularly, but I was trying to write it out earlier. I ended up writing about 10 pages. But the attempt at a long story short here is my early developmental, stages. I tended to place a lot of value in the fact that at the time I performed without really any effort better than most of my peers in school, and was put in the gifted and talented program in second grade.
Oh boy!
And I know, but I put a lot of my personal value in that, which is pretty unhealthy to do as a child. But I didn't know any better. I wasn't really sentient then. And that continued on until I went on to college, and I majored in English because I was good at it, which was a terrible decision. But I kind of immersed myself in, I was actually looking at some stuff earlier from a critical theory book of mine from college, where I was writing in the margins about Western constructs and treating, colonialism as positions the non-West as the other, creates an in the true, which means Western ideas are placed at a higher value, obscures reality in a way that legitimizes Western privilege. I mean, these are notes that I was taking in college.
Wow.
And I was also very lazy, so I did not really spend a lot of time engaging in that. I just learned how to regurgitate it very well back to pass tests and exams and things. So I became very good at saying exactly what I was taught, which was that kind of stuff. And again, I placed a really high value in having an upper hand, I guess, on people in conversations. And I became a nightmare. I was an actual meme where I came home from like a semester, comes home from one semester of college and knows everything more than the rest of the family, starting fights with everyone.
Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, no, I was an actual nightmare and was like unironically sharing, like, bless their hearts, because they've all forgiven me for my transgressions. But, I would take articles about how people who graduated from college would vote Democrat because they're so smart. And I was that person because, again, I didn't put a lot of effort into it. I was like equally intellectually lazy as I was just kind of regurgitating what I thought other people said that sounded smart. And then when I left college, that continued on, but I replaced, that intellectual stimulation that you saw in that book there with the likes of John Oliver and Jon Stewart. And I kind of equated the snarky little quips here and there that are usually non sequiturs and don't have anything to do with the actual content with making points. And again, I'm not claiming to have been a super genius then. In fact, the opposite. So I would repeat the kind of snarky things I would hear, and that was enough. I didn't have to think too much. I discovered beer a couple years ago as a bartender, and I was just having a good time. But my family, of course, was not terribly happy about that, and I put them through hell. I was not really a good person in my 20s. I made more bad decisions than I made good ones, I feel like. But they kept showing up and kept loving me even when I undoubtedly did not deserve it. And I think that made all the difference. But I do know there's a very specific moment in the timeline that was the levee broke, so to speak. And it was Hurricane Maria, of all things. And it's spans a couple of years, but in September of 2017, if you don't recall, there was a massive hurricane, Category 5, that hit Puerto Rico and just devastated the island, and it was awful. And they didn't have power. People didn't have, there were, I think, about 2,000. I don't know the final death toll, but it just tons of people died, lost everything, and it was chaos. Mm-hmm. And of course, the media machine did what it did, what it always does, and of course immediately started blaming Trump for not doing enough. And on September 17th of 2017, I posted on Facebook a Facebook post that, again, this ended up being a red pill for me later, but I tweeted, and I quote, "Our game show host president," which I had heard John Oliver or someone say, and I thought, oh, game show host, that's so clever. So I repeated it, and I said, "Our game show host president is tweeting about pro sports players," referring to Colin Kaepernick, "while Puerto Rico lies in tatters. Priorities, right?" And it got probably 30 likes on Facebook, which at the time was I placed value in that because I thought that people perceived me as being smart and funny, and that's what that's the dream, right? That's what you want. Lo and behold, over the next couple of years, a few different reports would come out from Puerto Rico. It should have been a kind of a tip-off at the time that the mayor of San Juan was getting daily T-shirts printed with political messages on it while she's claiming that they just didn't have anything. She wore a shirt that said, I think, nasty on it because Trump had called Hillary a nasty woman. And this is when she's like, "We don't have anything. We don't have power. What are you doing?" And she's getting T-shirts printed to wear on, CNN.
And they had the warehouses of water and all that stuff hidden away.
Well, there was also that. There was several different instances of that. But the major one actually didn't come. They found about 12 different tractor trailers full in 2018. They found a runway full of water and baby supplies that had just rotted away in, I think, mid 2018. But the one that got my attention, and and this is embarrassingly late, was in January of 2020, right before COVID. It was perfect time. The stage was set. It was a perfect time, in which they found just a massive warehouse. And of course, I wasn't really paying it too close of attention to the news at that point, but somehow, some way, I don't know, that got in front of me and I read it. And then I saw where they were referring to those other previous instances of just complete fall apart of the chain of command and of officials there taking care of the people and arguably letting people die because they would rather score political points and wear their fancy printed t-shirts on CNN. And I felt a really deep sense of shame because I still remembered the way that Facebook post had made me feel like 3 years before. I still remembered it. And I could have done what I always did before then and just kind of ignored it, stuffed it down and ignored those. But I allowed myself the just grace of processing through that, feeling shameful for I felt so superior over something that I knew absolutely nothing about. And at that point in time, I was already kind of, I guess, coming around and not just flying off the handle if my parents were trying to talk to me about the things that I thought. And I decided at that point in time that I was going to do better. So
it must have been really, really amazing after all those years. I mean, however you get to the party, you get to the party. It must have been great for your parents to have stuck with you. And if you say if there's all that friction and stuff, that must have been a wonderful relief to see eye to eye.
Huge relief. I owe a lot of it again to it. They just kept showing up and loving me in spite of myself. My stepmother, who we lost early this year, but she would do this thing that was so effective, and I didn't even realize how effective at the time. But when I would go off on my tirades, she would never lose her temper. She was a police officer for like 15 years and then moved to being a trauma nurse in Talladega County, Alabama. She was the most level head in the room no matter what was happening. And so she would never lose her cool at me. That didn't faze her at all. But so I would go off on a tirade. I'd be like red in the face and crying and all that, and she'd just go, "Well, Lauren, why do you think that?" And I couldn't tell her. And I would get mad at her because I couldn't tell her. I'd be like, you just don't understand, you don't get it, and she would just ask me why I thought the things that I thought, and I swear that did more. And she had to put up with a lot of abuse from me.
But you know something right there.
But it was so effective because I did not know.
That is what is so crazy about the media today, which is why they freak out as we become more decentralized and as independent voices start doing their own thing.
Well, yeah.
Because it's really not a matter of rocket science. We have been the information has been so poorly managed on purpose.
Terribly.
That the most it all falls apart if you ask remedial questions. And so you really just need to make sure that people are so disgusted with each other that the thought of even conversing with the other side is repugnant, like you want to throw up. Because if you have a decent conversation, all of a sudden you realize that the curtain just comes falling down. Let me ask you this though, because this brings me to your creation. You've aggregated a categorized news index pretty much that helps make legitimate connections, whereas where people for any amount of time wouldn't be able to see it between people, organizations, events that otherwise may seem random or unrelated. When I want to ask you when you started this project. And I want to get around to that, but what you just said there about Hurricane Maria reminds me a lot of what Brandon Strock from Walkaway told us all when he first started Walkaway, that he was just as, anti-Trump, anti-Republican, anti-blah, blah, blah, whatever, walking the liberal line until he put two and two together of that the media, there was a concerted effort there to lie profusely about Donald Trump making fun of a disabled reporter. And he just realized that, okay, this is a verified lie, and I believed it. And if they pushed this knowing it was a lie, then what the hell else is a lie? And it really only takes one little tiny thing. So now
we were talking about that earlier. I mean, that was not, that wasn't, I would say that probably, I don't even know what I don't know now. I thought I was getting a good handle on some things, and now I just accept that I don't know anything, but I'm working on it. It's a work in progress. But it was enough. It was enough to never just want to take a big hysterical media frenzy at its word ever again, because I did not want to feel shameful, or like I don't know. It was a feeling that I was not used to experiencing, and I didn't like it, so I wanted to avoid it.
But now digging is your job now, which is amazing. It's just like to go and to be see how contrarian the truth really is, and it's just really crazy. When did this really become a personal project of yours? I know you're streaming now. Did the streaming come before the archive that you created?
No.
Okay.
Well, yes and no. That was January, then COVID, right? Like immediately after. And I worked for a government contractor at the time as a financial data analyst. And so we went to working from home remotely, like at the beginning of March. So at the beginning of March, I am at home. At that point in time, no one really knew what was going on. And so I actually celebrated my 30th birthday, which is on March 30th. We were sitting apart at the table because we didn't know. But so I do have a skill that I didn't realize that I had, or I had I guess a knack for data analytics that I never had recognized in myself before entering the workforce and realizing that I could automate half my job and no one would be the wiser. So when everything was very nebulous and all over the place, I decided, one night, just sitting alone in my apartment, that I was going to go around to all the different areas where they were reporting COVID data all over the place. I was going to collect it all together. I was going to crunch the numbers the best that I could. And I decided I had maybe 150 followers on Twitter at the time. I joined Twitter again to talk to people that were not my friends on Facebook, because that turned out to be an absolute shit show. Yeah. So, talking to people that it was just a place to talk to people and honestly. But I had the thought, well, maybe someone else wants to see this. And so I posted that thread on March 9th of 2020. And as the kids say, it went insanely viral. I had my phone was melting down because I had all my notifications turned on because I never got any. I didn't know at the time that it had been retweeted by Donald Trump Jr., Sidney Powell. I didn't know any of these people either, and I mean, I still don't know them, but and it got 16,000. It was insane. It was insane for nobody, right? So that was fun. And I still had plenty of spare time because, again, I had automated half my job and my employer didn't know. So I just started looking in, because people were I had a small platform virtually, literally, actually, overnight. I had a small platform and people were keep doing this. You're good at it, please. Because there was no.
What data? What data? I probably saw this thread, but what data in particular were you compiling in that first thread about COVID?
I took the first 20 cases, the locations, the dates, which realistically, putting dots on a map at that point in time, it was already a wash. Yeah. But I plotted it out. I looked at the reports that they were giving for the comorbidities the people who had died had, where the locations were, and just kind of plotted it out and just to see. And I made a prediction at that point in time that actually ended up kind of expanding on a lot further, but I just said I think it's been here a lot longer. Mm-hmm. And I think people knew now and waited. Personally, I genuinely believe that an illness was circulating in late 2018, and if you actually go back and study the discrepancies between what we report as flu and influenza-like illness, which is a big secret they don't want you to know, there's always kind of a gap between what they go back and label as flu, which could be anything from diarrhea to coughing, an actual laboratory confirmed flu. And there are major discrepancies that began, and you can kind of track it seasonally between the northern and southern hemispheres. And right before the fall of 2019, Australia had their worst flu season ever. It was abnormal. It lasted longer. People were experiencing kind of like, you know, a little bit like weird symptoms, not necessarily. It didn't have a higher mortality rate, but it was weird. It was noticeable, right? And then we did. Our flu season in 2019 started off very oddly, and it hit kids hard because they were all in school. And so when they were like, yeah, kids don't seem to get it like later on, it was because they all already had it, in my mind. Again, I can't prove this, but I firmly believe it.
I had friends who were convinced that they were sick with it for in November and December 2019. Whatever the hell it was, that's just
it's just a rough. It was rough, you know. Being actually ill it's
never fun.
Feel good. It's not fun. But it's, you know, for most people, unless you had, I think the average person who died with COVID had 5 comorbidities. Yeah. Including COVID. So, it's certainly not just like, oh, sure, whatever, they were going to die anyways. But you have to, you know, take things in perspective that if it wasn't that, it was going to be a flu. But there was also a massive discrepancy. I mean, we all saw the flu data plummet. Immediately
just dissipate.
Yeah. Where did the flu go? It's a mystery to everyone.
So then when you took this now and then you expanded outside of COVID, because now the database is huge. So
I then looked into I made the mistake of asking the question, who is Tedros Ghebreyesus, who is the Director General of the WHO, and the rest is history. Because after that, I made like a video in like early April of 2020. It's really fun to go back and watch it now because I have like just like a panic-stricken look on my face. I'm like, it's this. The TLDR of it is me essentially going, I don't think Bill Gates is a nice person. You know, I was like, oh, I don't think he's nice, y'all, because you know, again, all of it's new to me, or was at the time, and still a lot of it is new to me. So I wanted to come up with a system to start keeping all of this. You know, I developed like a absolutely indecipherable like folder system that didn't work, and I kind of became obsessed with an idea of creating an index where I could plug in information, tag it, and pull it up very easily, but also not have to spend all my time trying to figure out where it is in my folder system or having to name files, or like I didn't want it to be super cumbersome. You know, I want it to be fast and efficient. Yeah. And I worked on developing the index that I have now. I really did work on developing the idea for probably about 2 years. I got very close a few times and then realized that some things that I thought would work to implement it just simply wouldn't. And I'm sure that there were plenty of ways that I could have done it, but you know, I was one of those things I kind of figure out what worked for me. And I studied like the W3's like schema for language and how to categorize things from the top down rather from the bottom up. You know, I'd want to hyper compartmentalize things, but then if something kind of crosses over into something else, it's in that folder. Should I take it over there? So I created a system that works for me and works how our brain actually works, because you take in information to all kinds of different topics all the time. You know, you don't put it into one folder and that stays there.
So let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. No. No, I understand it, and I'm trying to, and I'm also.
I feel very strongly about it because I've worked my ass off.
I know, and I feel the passion. That's why I'm trying to steer it a little bit, because I want to create this the bigger thing here. So you got people. You start with Tedros from the WHO. You start realizing, oh man, this Bill Gates here. But are you?
Well, I realized immediately after that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation was the second largest funder of the WHO, second to the United States, and how much say he had early on, and you know, the dots started connecting.
So when you start seeing people connecting to, how do you index people that are connected to organizations, that are connected to events? Like for example, Event 201, I'm sure you were able to really jump into all of that. Yeah. But even little things like, I don't know, Hollywood starlets that are thrown from 27-story balconies and stuff. Do you have things like that are all over the place?
I do. And there's kind of two broad sections of the site as far as information. I don't even know if anyone looks at my site. I made it for me, and I publish it because it's $10 a month because I found a very effective and cheap way to do it. So like, if anyone looks at it, cool. I made it for me, basically. But I have a section for an index of, again, like people, places, organizations, whatever. And then I have a section that I think I just call it the archive for videos, transcripts, PDFs, articles, and things like that. And I have a way to tag articles where I tag the publisher, the author, because I've gleaned some very interesting information accidentally off of that. I tag the author, who published it, when it was published, and any sort. I have like a tagging system of hashtag Epstein or whatever, so that I can pull it up quickly. But also the program I use, which is Obsidian, which is free, by the way, you can search the entire thing, any text. So even if I don't have it tagged properly, if it appears in there anywhere, it will still let me know. So if I type in some obscure name that I don't think about twice, if it appears in there again, I will still know and be able to connect those dots.
You see,
it's very powerful. Very powerful.
It
does a lot of the work for me. I did have to set it up, but it does the work for me now.
Yeah, and I got to say something before we go to break here. This is something that I have always said, oh man, this is something that is needed, like something like this, because
anybody can do it. It's easy. I can teach you.
No, I can't. This is too tedious for me. This is something that's
no,
in your.
No, it's not. It's easy. I told you that I was lazy and repeated what other people said instead of forming my own thoughts for the first 30 years of my life.
Yeah,
it's easy.
At the same time, Lauren, you also had this innate gift to go and do this kind of data analysis work for the government. So I mean, you already had this in you.
In hindsight.
So I know. This is something that really is like inside of somebody. Here's the thing for me.
But you also have a gift of doing this too, because you do the same thing. You just don't have a system for it.
Right. I pull it from my mind, whatever is left.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing.
What if you had a system that you could plug it all into in less than 30 seconds?
Well, I mean, I guess. Yeah.
If I want to process something in there, it takes me less than a minute per any item. It takes no time.
This is something that was needed. I was saying, I sort of
anybody can do it. I can teach you. It's
the year in review pages at the end of every year, and this is what I'll leave off on before we go to break. The year in review pages that are published at the end of every year, they really gives you a breakdown of all the headlines that went on month by month. So when you're in December, you go and you look back, hey, what was going on in February of this year? It's incredible how much we forget. It's incredible the details that are lost within gigantic stories of things like Spygate or something, and it also reminds me of Eyes Wide Shut for a little bit, and I'm going to leave off.
I've never actually seen that movie, but I know what it's about. I haven't seen most movies though. So
it's almost Eyes Wide Shut. See, you want to talk about something that you want to get in on an archive with. You want to talk about occult, esoteric symbolism, something that every scene is jam-packed with something that you would go into a massive rabbit hole, Lauren. You got to do it. But hold right there. I'm going to mute your stream, and we're going to go on to into our intermission. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, we're dropping off of all of our affiliates and going over to pilled.net. I have both all of the things that you need. The links that you need are in the description of this episode, especially on Rumble and on YouTube and on Rockfin. I tweeted them all out there. There's a direct Foxhole link, and then of course, if you just you can also go to quitefrankly.tv in a pinch. If you want to figure out all the registration stuff later on, you can also register through the chat room there on quitefrankly.tv. It's all powered by pilled.net, but please go directly to Pilled if you already have the link. I've been sharing it all day. It's going to be a good time, and we will be right back. There's no paywall. There's no shenanigans. There is no censorship.
Maybe some.
Yeah, just a little shenanigans, especially with Lauren here. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back-a-doo.
Pilled.net is proud to host Quite Frankly TV, exclusively on the home of free speech. To continue watching the show, we are here to help you over to Pilled. If you're new to the platform, just click on the welcome link provided. He will then walk you through signing up for your free account. If you already have a Pill.net account, follow the link provided directing you straight to Quite Frankly's stream. We are excited to have you join the Pilled family. And if you have any questions at all, please email support@Pill.net. Enjoy the rest of Quite Frankly TV on Pill.net. Free speech lives here.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out to press the like button. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to intermission.